So I think it all stems from the knowing yourself, right? Understanding yourself, right. Understanding your own triggers. Once you start to learn, you can then project. And there's actually one thing that recently Tom and I have been saying. So what would have to be true for that person to react in that way? Because I think of script writing, I think, okay, if I was to write the script and this person right now is screaming at me because I said, I don't like your shirt. What would have to be true that I've hurt them so much by me saying I don't like their shirt? Okay, let me backtrack. Maybe they were teased as a kid for the way they looked and they built their confidence just enough to find the courage just to wear one shirt. And so now what I've done is trigger them. And so I tried to kind of backtrack and just use the phrase, what would have to be true for them to experience this moment as overwhelm, anxiety, when I'm not sure what has happened to actually warrant, quote unquote, that behavior.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really beautiful way to look at it. And the more information, of course, when we're talking about our close friends, our loved ones, our partners, you know, some of us can fill in that story, though we don't have to. And oftentimes it is that explosive person who's arguing with the world around us. I mean, some of us, that becomes our character. It's outside of these moments of where I'm upset and you don't like my shirt. I mean, some of us are so defensive by nature. I could go as far as to call it nature. And again, make an argument as so far as that there was a reason, right? There's a reason that this person had to become so defensive, probably in childhood, where being defensive, wearing that armor, maybe even fighting or scrapping my way through instances of overwhelming feelings, whether it was abuse or neglect or whatever it was in our home. For some of us, that was our only way of, you know, creating some semblance of safety or grounding. And again, when we look on the surface, that really defensive person can be very difficult to relate to connect with. But when we shift that focus and understand that that served them, all of our habits, as far as I'm concerned, and a big reason why I'm always talking about how habitual we are, all of our habits are grounded in a best kept or a best attempt at creating safety, at adapting to an environment. The problem becomes when we continue to repeat those habits as our environments shift and change, as our relationships shift and change, as we grow and develop and mature and have access to other tools. Because the reality of it is, in those emotional moments, we're going to rely on those habitual reactions because at one time, not only do they keep us safe, they're predictable.